Nahida's finally back at last. But should you really still care about Dendro in this Natlan day and age? Well, today I thought it'd be fun to discuss that here with you today, and find out whether you should still care about Dendro or not, depending on what your Genshin account looks like. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. I'll begin with all the reasons as to why you should care for Dendro, then delve into all the negatives that have arisen over time. And if you want to give Dendro a spin for yourself, Nahida's on banners right now, but where can you go to afford cheaper Primo Gems to pull for her? Well, Loot Bar is here to save a day. Loot Bar is a fantastic service which can offer you cheaper Genesis Crystals and Stellar Jades compared to the official prices shown in-game. Take a look at this comparison between the cost of crystals from Loot Bar and then from the game's top-up store. If you're new, then you can claim a coupon which grants you an amazing 5% off, and the prices are up to 20% cheaper compared to the official channel. Loot Bar is an absolutely safe service, and has an endless amount of positive reviews. How can you use the site? Well, allow me to show you. First, input your UID. That's right, you need no login information whatsoever. Choose your desired package, and then you'll get your delicious Primos delivered to you. This is all legit since the site uses a VPN, which is how they cheapen the Primo Gems, and official top-up methods are used. Check out Loot Bar today to save on all your gacha needs. The number one positive of Dendro, which has not changed since day number 1 of it releasing, is that it's very low investment friendly. It's extremely easy to put together a budget team which will crush the abyss with either only 4 stars or only 1 5-star, which more often than not is Nahida. If you're just starting out and you don't have many resources to your name, then the first archetype you're most likely going to turn to is Dendro teams. Seriously, for any newer player watching, if you want to cheese the game, then make your way to a Sumeru statue of a 7 and absorb the Dendro element. The rest of the game is going to become laughably easy. And it's not just low Primo investment, it's also low resin investment. Yes, EM isn't exactly the easiest thing to land either, especially since EM circlets are actually quite a rare artifact drop. EM main stats are the hardest to get across the board too. But once you've got one, you've got a piece ready for a unit. You don't have to worry about crit stats or substats like 90% of the time. The rare exceptions to this rule would be the 5-star DPSs that take advantage of Dendro reactions, but most of our Dendro utilizing units are happy to work with subpar pieces. These teams also require next to 0 skill expression. You can play a team of Nahida, Shengcho, Official, and Kuki Shinobu, which needs literally 0 knowledge of proper rotations, plus complicated techniques, and wipe the floor with the Abyss. The most you need to know is that everybody's abilities should be up when the plant kit is on fielding, and to keep Nahida's burst up so that you can benefits from her A1's EM sharing. The most complicated Dendro character is Alhaitham, who can employ detailed rotations to completely maximize his mirror uptime while also keeping buffs up. You do get rewarded pretty handsomely for playing the guy well. His team is nothing to sneeze at for sure, but even if you play him totally nonsensically, you can still clear quite comfortably, because that's the power of Dendro nonsense, my friend. There's Emilie and Kinich too, but I'm going to talk about those two later on in the video. Hold your horses until then. So those are the main pros of Dendro in my opinion. It's cheap in every regard in terms of primos, resin, and even gameplay skill. However, now that we're on the same page in terms of why Dendro is solid, I have to completely tear it apart. First off, cheapness. Okay, cool, but a Novelette on Prototype Amber with bad artifacts does a nonsensical amount of DPS, or even an Arlecchino on White Tassel. Those two aren't expensive to get going either, and they do a whole lot better than a mega cheap Dendro team. Modern units also have pretty decent ease of use. I don't think Novelette is asking much when he wants you to hold down one button to decimate all content in front of you. Sure, teams like Vape Linny are pretty hard to operate, but there are plenty of other really simple DPSs which perform very well with a low level of skill expression. I wouldn't say that Navi is the hardest character to play in the world. Most people can pretty easily figure out how to use her, and she's quite free to play friendly. Think about it. She can use craftables very nicely, 4-piece Ender City Kachina, who is a free unit, Shangling, who is a free unit, and Bennett, who is on nearly all character banners. Sure, you have to build proper crit stats, but you'll be clearing faster than your average dirt cheap Dendro team. The modern crit-based meta within Fontaine and Natlan has far more high investment potential too. To a lot of people, that literally is not going to matter whatsoever, but it's something to take into account if you want to invest in constellations long term. A C2 Arlecchino is gonna go a much longer way than a C2 Alhaitham, for instance, and if you want to talk supports, then a C2 Farina is gonna go further than a C2 Nahida as well, because one applies to every team there is and the other doesn't. The old Dendro meta is never really going to improve from here. Those teams are certainly great for jumpstarting your account and clearing as soon as possible, which for some people is all they need. After all, there's no difference between clearing in 50 seconds or 30. It's still a 36-star clear at the end of the day, but there's only so much you can do with them after a certain point. Having a hard cap on skill expression and resin investment is as much of a curse as it is a blessing, because no matter how much you improve at the game, your clears are always going to remain stagnant, unless you're playing a Hytham, of course. For example, a highly invested Nuvolette Celestia killer team is going to wipe the freaking floor when put up against a highly invested Nilo team. It's not even close. I'd say the only real Dendro DPS competitor nowadays is Hytham. The rest are kinda cooked in comparison to Fontanians and Natlaners. And that's another thing. The Natlan characters we have right now are freaking strong. But I'm sure some of you are incredibly confused as to why I've not been talking about Emilie and Kinich up until this point. After all, aren't they really strong modern Dendro characters? Correct. But they don't hold the qualities that people praise so highly about Dendro. They are a departure from the element's main identity. To clarify, when I suggest that Dendro may be falling off, I am not talking about this Natlan era of Dendro. I'm talking about the old Sumeru meta, with the likes of Hyperbloom, Bloom, and such. Emilie is a really good unit, but she plays in higher investment crit-based teams. She did expand Dendro's available teams in fairness, and was a step in the right direction. We finally have a character who wants to play in Burning and Burgeon teams. Then there's Kinich, who genuinely has one of the most fun playstyles in the game. I immediately turned him into my second main once he came out, because his playstyle is ridiculously fun. He also ended up capitalizing on Burning and Burgeon teams. Very well too, in all honesty. Regardless, even if those two are not like regular Dendro characters, it'd be stupid of me to say, oh no, it's falling off. Then turn a blind eye to how Emilie and Kinich are doing a great job adapting the element into modern situations, while offering a more high investment friendly route for people who like Dendro. This is indeed a W for it. Mualani also likes using it. Shoot man, you can even use Nahida in the Shark Surfers teams thanks to your A1's EM sharing if you don't own Emilie, so it'd be very ignorant of me to pretend like there are literally zero use cases for the element outside of Sumeru, not to mention the minor spotlight it got with Chloriander's release, thanks to us getting a new best in slot aggravate team with her. So even if modern options do nearly match the cheapness and low skill requirement of old Dendro teams, it's not like all of those modern options are completely vegetable free. There are also a few specific cases which might make Dendro even more or less appealing to you, depending on what kind of account you have or how you play. First off, if you play on mobile, most Dendro teams really don't ask much of you rotationally. Button spamming your iPad or phone will get you for the abyss just fine. Next, if you're a whale, I'd steer clear of Dendro. I'm talking from the perspective of somebody with a C6 R1 Farina and plenty of C2s. It will disappoint you compared to other high investment routes. A bit of whale yap talking here, but some Sumeru C6s are the most underwhelming thing on the planet. Sino C6 is seriously whatever in terms of the whale meta, for example. Get Fontaine cons instead, or Mualani cons. I'd say Favre and the Shark Surfer are the ways to go in terms of whaling right now. Shilonen's release also made C6 Navia feel even better than before, speaking from experience. Kinich's C6 is also not to be slept on. I also think there are far better current investments to make as a whale. The chance to C2 Shilonen just passed for starters, and I wouldn't sleep on C2 Xianyan either. So if you're a whale, I wouldn't really look to C2 Nahida as your first point of whale investment. If anybody listened to all of this and found it to actually be useful, then please let me know. I'd be happy to make guides on the best C6s to pull, but I don't know how many people would actually want that. Comment with a cheese emoji if you didn't skip that segment and would actually want some whale guides. Thirdly, if you're a dolphin or free-to-play, then C2 Nahida is still pretty decent, but Farina cons should come first. If you like high skill expression, then Kinich is a decent way to go. It can be really fun trying to squeeze in as many nukes as possible with a dude. Then also consider how old your account is. The older the account, the worse that Sumeru Dendro becomes, because you'll have far more team options available to you which are capable of higher damage ceilings. This all leads us back to our core question. Has Dendro fallen off? I've always hated videos that opted out of the main question with a simple, it depends. Unfortunately, it really does in this case, but because I hate open, ambiguous answers to things, I'm going to say yes, it has, from my perspective, and specifically Sumeru Dendro. Alhaitham is still really good in fairness, and Dendro has been getting a cool Burgeon revival in recent times, but I do think that new teams are equally as accessible and easy to use as Dendro teams while being stronger, with very few exceptions in terms of ease of use. Like, okay, Mualani and Linny, those two are the hardest S-tier DPSs to operate right now, but you literally have Navia, Arlecchino, and Nuvolette right there. me, Dendro has fallen off in the traditional sense. Its old qualities pertaining to being good for new players and free-to-plays of small rosters does still exist. But it's not at the top of the meta anymore. There are better teams now. However, if you're looking at the new Dendro meta, then I think it has a lot of potential. I believe Hoyo is trying to evolve the Element's teams to a stage where they can be more comfortably vertically invested into. I'm very intrigued by this new direction that they're taking with the Element. Plus, I'll be honest, even if I say that Dendro has fallen off, dude, has it really? Oh no! There's new teams which clear 20 to 30 seconds faster. Whatever will I do? It's not that deep, especially because these teams are still good. Most Dendro comps are still better than a lot of teams that you can play in this game. Because a solid portion of this game's cast is B tier. Remember, Genshin has like 80 plus characters at this stage, soon rounding up to 90 plus. The fact that we're near 100 at all is insane. When I say that it fell off, you have to take the phrase very literally. It didn't drop down to F- tier, it fell down to like A to B tier depending on the unit. See? Not that bad. I don't think Hoyo needs to buff old Sumeru teams, except maybe making a Dendro support for Sino that has Emilie levels of multi-wave. They have their place as the accessible, easy team with not much hunger for resources in order to clear. Their drawback is not boding as well with high primo or resin investment compared to other teams, which in my opinion is a perfectly balanced trade-off. Not every team needs to be this overly expensive nuclear bomb. After all, free-to-plays have to start somewhere. At the end of the day, what people like about Dendro isn't so much the numbers, but rather the wonderful ease of use plus flexibility it has. I'm actually surprised by how old Sumeru Dendro teams can still clear these really high HP chambers in like 40 to 50 seconds with little to no skill expression whatsoever. It certainly has its impressive merit, but because I'm a high investment player who's been playing the game for quite some time, Dendro always underwhelms me in comparison to other teams, even on accounts of all characters owned at C0. But what do you think about Dendro's current state? Is it still as strong as ever? Or do you also feel like it's not as good as it used to be? Let me know down below in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hopefully this video was able to present you the interesting dilemma as to whether Dendro has fallen off or not in this modern Natlan age of Genshin. This has been Juice, signing out. And the reason why Alhaitham is still good is because he's the most good-looking character from the entirety of Sumeru. I will stand by this.